one of the most important memories that I have growing up amongst Indian people were in Carroll, Michigan, where there's an abundance of Saginaw Chippewa Indian people. I grew up in the city, Bay City, Michigan, and oftentimes my mother would ask, "Who wants to go see the Indians?" And I was all enthusiastic about that because I'm most comfortable around other Indian people. And so we would take family trips to Carroll, Michigan, where all our family members were the Saginaw Chippewa people in Carroll, Michigan. And the one thing that I remember the most about those times when I was a little boy growing up amongst my family, other Indian people, Saginaw Chippewas, was the fact that they spoke the language fluently. None of them were afraid of speaking the language. And I grew up around listening to the language, even though I couldn't understand what the elders were saying. It was most comforting to me because laughter was always involved. To be able to hear the Anishinaabe Mowin being spoken freely and powerfully is a memory that will always be with me. The one word that I do recall is bakayan, which is to quiet down, settle down. And I'm always most happy whenever I'm around Anishinaabe elders, hearing the language. And although I still don't understand the majority of it, it still brings me to those times when I was among Saginaw Chippewa Indian people in Carroll, Michigan. And to me, the history of me growing up is one that I think of most fondly. And I'll always remember that and be thankful to those elders who were brave enough to speak the language in a time when oftentimes the Anishinaabe Mowin speaking the Indian language was frowned upon. And I'll always be indebted to those grandpas and grandmas for making me who I am today because of the language.
I had the good fortune in my childhood to be surrounded by numerous elders, including my father Ritter, that were culture carriers. They knew the importance of keeping our way of life alive. And so my mother was German Dutch and my dad was Anishinaabe. So both of them were from large families. So my mom was first generation to speak English only. My dad was first generation to speak English only. So they had a lot of similarities on trying to take and adapt to America, even though they came from different countries and different cultures and that. And then building their own family together. How do you blend these different cultures together to create your own family and the support of their families, even though they had different languages and different upbringings. So that taught us that the family really needed to come together and rely on one another and to rely on your extended family. And my dad, he recognized when he was a young man that our culture was very at risk, including the language and the cultural arts. And so he looked at my mom, and I know this from stories from my older siblings, and said, you're probably going to divorce me, but I'm quitting my factory job, and I'm going to just travel throughout Indian country and be with as many elders as I can, and I'm going to save as much of our culture as I can before it's lost. And imagine being, my mom from a totally different culture, almost picking up like she left America. And she did. She traveled throughout the Great Lakes. We moved every year of our life, just going by whatever elder would make time for us and learning our cultural arts, our religion, our medicines, our languages, our songs. And that was my childhood, and that was my school outside of formal school. I had one of the most blessed upbringings because of all the elders just bestowing their wisdom, their love, and their dedication to the youth. You know, that's what I heard over and over, is throughout our life, it doesn't matter what culture we're from, what nationality we are, we need a good support systems for individuals and families. We need to share our love, we need to share our wisdom, because none of that is to be kept for ourselves. And that needs to be bestowed to the next generation. So that way they're able to bestow it to the next generation. And so again, my dad's name, Red Arrow, he would say it means blood on the arrow for his people. And he would tell us, you know, one arrow alone can be broken easy, just like one twig can. But when you put it together in a collective group, it becomes strong. And when you really know your purpose in life, and he really stressed the importance of embracing who you are, no matter what that means, and living your life according to that teaching, and then sharing that with the next generation. And so I have to be thankful for all those elders that made that happen.
Everything was a lesson, and a lesson in two cultures. One, the Indian culture, and one, the culture that I had to live in. And the challenge was reaching the two, a bridge to survive and to prosper. So, you know, I mean, my brain is kind of spinning, trying to pick out through my 72 years one. And I can't, I really can't. Because you talk to, and I'm primarily now talking about my mother, and but you talk to elders, and like they were saying, there's just this need, innate need to talk to elders. I mean, it's like drinking fresh water.
Mm-hmm.
And there's elder councils around still, around the state and around the country. And you sit there and you talk to them and just ask them everyday questions, and you get very unique answers. And so, no, I don't have this one. It's all like bound together in my psyche. And so that's how I would answer your question.
One of the things that I've grown up with, and that was really instilled within me, was not only our spiritually, but the connections from learning the song and dance style. I am the next generation for her. She is an auntie. So my grandfather was Red Arrow. And listening to the stories of, or the songs that he would sing as he would drum, listening to him explain like the different dances and the different styles, and then also learning from my aunts and my uncles the importance of the cultural arts. That's always been something that's been just kind of embedded into us.
To elaborate a little bit on what Bernard is saying, it's remembering that we know we're Anishinaabe, but it doesn't mean that we don't know that we're also Michiganders and Americans, you know, and that we are citizens of the world, that there's that connectedness, but we don't have to give up our unique identities, our heritages. It doesn't lessen anything else. We know we can be all of that and embrace it.
I was brought up in a generation where the culture was lost to my younger generation as a young child, and as a teenager, and then as a young adult. And so I had to seek out that information. I had to seek out the Ziibiwing Center, if you may, where the culture was held. So I had to go to these places and listen to these people, the elders or the spiritual people, as you may. And a lot of things that they talked about was the language and the importance of the language to the Anishinaabe people. And what they told me about the language in our spirituality is that our language is very strong and very powerful. that when we use our language in prayer, our connection to our Creator, that we don't need any other catalyst. That when we petition our Creator through the use of our language, that the Creator in His infinite wisdom will stop during that time, and He will listen to you. And just that statement was very powerful to me as an individual, that my God and my Creator would stop and listen to me and listen to what I had to say to that entity. And then, so I used to listen to these spiritual people speak, and particularly one person in particular that I'm not originally from Michigan. I'm from Wisconsin, and I used to listen to this elder. You know, and he would get up and speak. And he was one of the very few that held the language, that was an original speaker of the language. And every time he would stand up, he would say to the audience, you know, listen to what I have to say. Listen to what I have to say. Because one day, it's going to be you that is standing up here in front of the crowd saying what I have to say. So that information stuck with me. To listen to what the people are saying when they're speaking the language or talking about the culture, the heritage of the Anishinaabe people.